Alrighty, sorry about that, fellas. That I don't know what's going on with my internet connection. Something with the Wi-Fi in this room is exceptionally shitty, which it didn't used to be. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Sorry, I'm clearing out my email while you guys are still hopping back in here. Oh boy, let's see. Robert, because a lot of amps are high gain these days, do high output humbuckers even matter these days? Can I still get the same amount of gain with a normal output humbucker? I use a Mesa Mark IV. Does I mean, I think there's not a wrong answer for this because you're going to get a lot of different opinions on this. A lot of people say you don't need high output humbuckers anymore because amps are, pardon me, because there's so many high gain amps that are out there these days. Yeah, I suppose that's true, but it's, I guess, because of where the gain hits in the signal chain, be it at the front or the back, seems to make a difference in my opinion. And high output pickups into a high gain amp sound different, not than low output pickups into the same high gain amp, even on a higher gain setting. So, to me, it's the answer to your question. Do high output humbuckers still matter? Yes, I think they do. Um, and there, if you guys remember a few months back, 6 months, I don't know how long ago it was now. I mean, I can't keep track of all these videos anymore. But when I demoed the Bartolini guitar pickups and that nameless, faceless white guitar that I have. I mean, nothing sounds like that guitar because the pickups in it are so incredibly high output. Nothing sounds like that guitar or anything close to it. You know, so because of that, I mean, whether I'm running it into a clean amp or high gain amp or whatever it is, I mean, it's just I can tell that's what guitar it is, of my stash anyway. I can tell that's what guitar it is because of the pickups in it. And I think that's because the where that high gain hits the signal path as a whole, be it on the front end as opposed to on the back. So, many use Blocker Lighter says many use these Fishman pickups. They have a tremendous output, and that's there's another example right there actually, because between Fishman pickups, yeah, or well, not necessarily Fishman, but even EMGs. Fishmans are active as well. So Fishmans, EMGs, whatever your favorite active pickup is. There's just they do just have a little bit different sound to it, and I think that's because of the output that's that they're putting out from the front end of the guitar signal, as opposed to the gain control on the amp itself. Active pickups just sound better, not better, but they just sound different. They have that specific sustain characteristic about them that a lot of people like. That's what makes them popular. Particularly, think about somebody like Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde always been an active pickup user, and one reason why is because of the sustain factor of those things. And for him, it really, really matters because he does a lot of pinch harmonics and squeals and stuff like that require a lot of sustain and a lot of gain to be able to maintain that sustain through the signal path. So, so take that for what it's worth. and for the record, I have not yet. I still haven't gotten to try the Fishmans. I've really wanted to. I've even come close to just saying the hell with it and going and buying a guitar that has Fishman modern, Fishman Fluence modern pickups in it. So, because I still haven't tried them, and I don't have any guitars that I'm willing to swap out pickups for that. That I could just go buy a set of those and call it a day. Although now I'm looking around, I don't know, maybe I can find something. I don't know, maybe I'll give that some more thought. I like to use EMG 60s or Seymour Duncan Trembuckers. They're about in the same ballpark. The Fishmans are unusable when things are set up for other pickups. Well, the Trembucker doesn't. I mean, that's not a specific model from. I'm curious to know which Duncan model, because the Trembuckers are just their regular humbuckers, but they're spaced. They're the equivalent of like the DiMarzio F-spaced pickups. They're spaced slightly differently for guitars with tremolos. You can use them on non-tremolo guitars, of course, but but they're designed specifically for guitars that have tremolos on them. Floyd Rose and Floyd's in particular. That style. So, okay, so the HS6. I don't remember which one that is. Or the SH6 is probably what it is. Seymour Duncan SH6. Is that the JB? That's the distortion, okay, which is a pretty high output. That's a pretty high output humbucker there. George Lynch used the distortion forever. Still does, I think, actually. He was on the, he used the, I guess even after Duncan came out with the Screaming Demon, which is his, kind of, I don't think it officially has his name on it, but it was designed specifically for him. But he's always used the distortion, and I think a lot of that has to do with the output of it. Particularly in the early days, when he was slamming the front end of his, trying to hit the front end of his Marshall with as much gain as he can. Dave L says, I'm not a fan of the Fishmans, but I have only tried the Moderns, Classic, and the Keith Merrill ones. There's something going on in the upper mid-range I don't like and had a lot of string noise. I have not tried them, though my experience, pickups don't really seem to affect EQ very much at all, and if they do, it's very easily adjusted in other areas of the signal chain. So I like the EMG 85 more than the 81 in the bridge. Wasn't expecting that, but it just sounded better to me. The 81 and the 85 are almost identical pickups. Really, about the only difference between the two is the 85 has about 25% less output. So it's a the 81 is the hotter version of the same pickup, really. So there's so you probably like the lower gain, the lower amount of output that the 85 puts out. The 81, 85, of course, being the Zakk Wylde set, if you are not familiar. And that for the longest time, that was their most popular pickup combination. If you bought a guitar that had EMGs in it, that's active EMGs. If it was a metal guitar, likely that's probably what it had in it. A lot of the LTDs and Schecters and stuff, well, not the Schecters, but LTDs and stuff like that all had EMGs. It was usually an 81, 85 set. EMGs are still the superior active pickup for me. On the market, I think there's no question they're still the superior active pickup, at least from a sales perspective. Pardon me. From a sales perspective, EMGs are probably still outselling any other active pickup on the market, though they're not the only game in town. Fishman's being the newest ones, but then you also have other stuff. Duncan has a few options. For example, they've got the Blackouts, which are really essentially their EMG competitors. I've got a set of those, one of my BC Ritz guitars. They're essentially their EMG competitors, and they also have their various live wire pickups, which are all active, and some of those, like the Dave Mustaine, I think, has at least at one time he had a signature live wire pickup. It was a signature active live wire pickup, but relatively low output. I mean, I personally didn't care for it, to be honest with you, because it sounded kind of dead to me almost. But but Dave Mustaine's never been a real high gain kind of player anyway, so for him, it suits just fine. Poo Poo, interesting screen name. Thoughts on new tube technology? As far as in guitar gear anyway, kind of tough to beat the real thing, whenever I see the new tube thing, the first thing that always comes to mind is that Ibanez new tube screamer, which I think they're still producing it. Have a look-see, but yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not making it anymore. I'm not sure. Looks like Vox now has a keyboard amp with new tube in it. So, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. It seems like it was kind of a short-lived thing, I mean, it doesn't really even seem to be too many people that are making it anymore. I think it was Anderton's a few years back. They did a shootout video between a regular, a regular tube screamer. I think it were several tube screamers, but specifically what they were focusing on was the newer, the newer technology versions, specifically the new tube and how they sounded compared to the old versions. And, based on that shootout anyway, that demo, the new tube did not sound anywhere near as good as it's a good old fashioned bone stock tube screamer. So, not, without being too harsh, it was a lot of hype a couple years ago, but kind of seems to have died out. I mean, there's nobody screaming for new tube stuff anymore. It doesn't seem to be, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of it, a whole lot of stuff that's even being made with it anymore. So, from a technology aspect, maybe it's for some other stuff. It may be a very good alternative, but in guitar gear, as far as sound goes, I don't think you're going to see much of it, until they perfect the technology. I like the distortions, meaning the Seymour Duncan distortions. When split, they produce amazing cleans too. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that pickup as a coil split. The Fishmans that came on my BC Rich Extreme I gave away on Facebook. So I would love to have one of those newer BC Rich, one of those newer BC Rich guitars that has them in it. But BC Rich is going through a tough time right now. I need to do a video on that, I think. Number one, and number two, their new product line's expensive, man. Even when I had access to buy them at cost, they were expensive. So I'm gonna, I don't know that I'll get a hold of one of those anytime soon or not. Seeing a lot more OEMs starting to put in Fishmans though, especially a bunch of models from ESP Ltd. Yeah, and a lot of that's contract based. There's, of the pickup companies, Duncan and DiMarzio, of course, are the big ones. Duncan in particular. So, but they don't. Most guitar manufacturers, especially the big brands, they don't just decide, hey, let's go put, let's try these, these Duncans in and see how they go. If that's the case, they work out a deal with Seymour Duncan. Can we use this pickup in this guitar? And Duncan either says yay or nay. And usually the first guitar, the first question that Seymour Duncan is going to ask in that instance is, what's the price point? Because they won't allow their USA pickups to be put into any guitars below, I think it's like $8.99 nowadays or something like that. Might even be higher with inflation now. So, like with Schecter, for example, Schecter used to put Duncans in a lot of guitars. And, all of a sudden, Schecter was coming out. They started reproducing their own pickups, like their own USA pickups. Like on the CR6, that's the green Schecter that you guys see me using all the time. That one has, it's now an $800 guitar. It was a $700 guitar when I bought mine. That guitar comes with Schecter USA pickups because it was below the threshold that Duncan and EMG and all the pickup manufacturers would allow their USA pickups to go into. So Schecter said, "All right, fine, fuck it. We'll just make our own, and that's how we'll keep the cost down, still offer a great value, and in doing so, hats off to Schecter because they're pretty good sounding pickups. I'm really happy with mine. I have the Apocalypse 2, I think it is, the USA Apocalypse 2 pickups. So, that's, when you see guitars, when you see, those pickups like that showing up in guitar, particularly brands like ESP, LTD, stuff like that. Gibson's used other companies' pickups in the past quite a bit. That's the reason why. So, they have to work it out with the pickup company beforehand. And a lot of times it's a signature model that's in question that they're doing it with. Like Keith Merrow, for example, I think had a specific set of Duncans or something in it at one time. The Keith Merrow Schecters, because those were his signature pickups. Duncan pretty much demanded that they go in, that they go into that guitar. Which accounts for part of the price compared to similar models. Time Serving Aliens is thinking of converting my acoustic to electric acoustic. Any thoughts on options? There's a lot of different ways to go about that. I would recommend you don't just go with the simple undersaddle pickup. There's a little undersaddle piezo thing that you can just install. It just slides right in. And then there's a wire that usually goes down into the acoustic body, and then the rest of the electronics are mounted to where the output jack would be installed. So there's several different ways to go about it, but if you go with two things I recommend, is to go with something active. Don't go passive. I think you'll wish that you didn't. So go with something active with a preamp, and be okay. And again, Fishman and Anthem, LR Bags are pretty much the biggest players in town in that arena. So, unless it's a Taylor, then of course Taylor's now using their own proprietary stuff, and Taylor's proprietary electronics are also really, really good. Should you want to buy one of their like what's it called, the ES2 or something like that, one of their proprietary electronic systems, and put it in something else, if you have the means to do so, or your luthier knows how to do it, for example. So yeah, a lot of options. Like I said, I'd start with I'd make sure it's active and has a preamp of some kind. Somebody down below says buy an Anthem SL and don't look back. Yeah, and the bags, the Anthem stuff are those pickups are actually really, really good. So that's a good suggestion. The new Tube Screamer that sounds no better than the regular Tube Screamer that costs less than half the price. Yep, no thanks. That's pretty much how I feel about it. I couldn't justify the cost I mean, I think I saw a used one on when I was just looking at it. There was a used one on Guitar Center's website, but that popped up. But that was the only one that I saw. I didn't look at the price on it, but no, that seemed that experiment did not seem to work out long term for Ibanez. Now here 10 years from now or something, those pedals are going to be selling for hundreds of dollars. I have an old 80s IBZ pickup from a Roadstar that I just put into a Strat. I love the sound, but I have no idea who made it for Ibanez. DiMarzio. All those IBZ pickups are all DiMarzios, as far as I know. Some of them were imports. Some of them were actually USA pickups that Ibanez just had. Ibanez put their own logo, their own branding on it. Which they've been known to do quite a bit over the years. But most of the time with Ibanez or pickups, they've had a long-standing relationship with DiMarzio. So, most of the time, unless it's something specific that's got EMGs or Fishmans or Duncans, and they've used all of those as well, but not, probably 90% of the time at least, or, about 90% of the time Ibanez uses DiMarzio something or other. A lot of them are imports. Like on that, the RG RGRT 421 that I demoed a couple months ago that I have, I think it's out in the other room, but $500 guitar, all it says is, I think they're just described as Ibanez proprietary pickups, which, again, they're import DiMarzios. Speaking of Andertons, Indie NewTube, watch their 2018 review of the MV150 heads. Somebody feeling good. I haven't watched Andertons too much lately. I used to watch their videos all the time, but my favorite videos there, I always liked when Rob and Lee did their videos together, and of course Rob's not there anymore. He's not really involved. He did just post a video a couple days ago that said he's going to be there here in the coming weeks, and he's going to spend a couple of days doing videos with them. But so occasionally he gets back in town, and because he doesn't live there anymore, so occasionally he gets back in town and does still does some stuff with them. But I liked it better when Chapman was involved. Not that there's anything wrong with any of the other guys. There's not. I mean, those guys are all great, but I just always liked Rob's perspective. And he and Lee just have a good on-screen, on-camera chemistry together. Because they're obviously very close friends and business partners and all that stuff. But to me, those two together were just they were the fun ones to watch. I have a lot of similar musical interests as far as bands we're into and stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of why I was always kind of into him. But 2018 review of the MV150 head. I'm not sure. I think it's a Vox. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. Schecter actually started out making pickups in the 70s before they made production guitars. They made good pickups. They were actually started out as a parts company. They didn't make just pickups. They made all kinds of guitar parts. And other companies were sourcing a lot of their parts from Schecter. So yes, you were correct. That's how they started out. And then finally Schecter said, "Fuck it, why are we not building our own guitars with these parts?" And now they're one of the biggest guitar brands out there, and particularly for metal players. I love Schecters. I think they're great. They're one of my favorite guitar brands. Schecter used to make their own hardware for a long time, fine pickups, even their own design locking tremolo system, which was really solid. Talking 1980s now. There's a couple of you saying the same thing. I'd love to have one of those Schecter trims on my Strat. I don't know that I've ever run across one of their old tremolos from that era. Mount Salmonella. I'm gonna call you Mount Salmonella. I don't know how you pronounce it. Regarding the Anthem SL that you recommended earlier, has an undersaddle and a microphone. So yeah, so it has the undersaddle but also has the internal microphone, so it picks up the resonance going on inside the guitar and blends the two together. And I think that particular model actually has a blend control that you can adjust between those two sources. I have one I put in a cheap Martin and sounds great. They make IRs that go with the specific system if you want to go that far. Schecter has the only Telly with an arm carve as far as I know. That I don't know. That I could not tell you, to be honest. I mean, they're. I'm not a big I'm not a big Fender Telly guy at all. When it comes to the actual Fenders, I'd much rather have a Strat. But the Telly body style, even from other companies, it's okay. I don't hate it, but it's generally not my first choice. So I bought a used ESP from the 80s, but sadly the truss rod was completely stuck. Fortunately, I was able to return it. The life of buying and selling vintage guitars. Sometimes shit happens. That sucks though when you get a truss rod that's completely frozen up like that. And thank God companies started coming out with dual action truss rods to help prevent that. I am starting to get hungry. I need to go get myself some lunch of some kind. Sorry for the distraction. Give me 1 second here. So I admit, I guess I don't recall exactly. I don't admit. I don't recall. I have the PT Fastback, and it's amazing. Not just amazing for the price either, but simply amazing. But I feel that way about all 4 Schecters I have. I own 3 Schecters, and I gotta give them credit, man. Like I said, I own 3 of them, and it's been pretty easy to fall in love with all 3 of them. And 2 of them have been my primary YouTube demo, gear demo guitars for a long time now. The CR6 I've used as my number 1 YouTube guitar for the last, God, when did I buy that? 5 years now, I guess I've had it, something like that. And before that I was using the SLS Blackjack, which is still hanging up on the wall. I haven't used that one in a while, but I need to pull that one back down because it's an awesome guitar. And most recently got the Sun Valley Super Shredder, which I waited forever for. But once it showed up, once it arrived, it was worth it. Ironically, 2 of the Schecters that I have that I love are both bolt-on necks. I tend to prefer neck through, but both of those are bolts. I don't know. All right, fellas, I got to get going here. I need to go get me some lunch, and I got a couple of other things I need to handle. get handled here today, specifically for tax season. And yeah, I'm off. So may get back. I may do this again tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll see what I can do by getting a video up here for you guys to enjoy here, hopefully for the weekend. So, adios.